spent a large blocking evening cutting Mimi out of Roger's stomach. And then it was followed by Richard, the nice nurse, singing about giants in the sky.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
So I guess that's a fun intro way of saying, hi everybody, welcome to Strange Deer. On our final On the Road episode, it's Kay.
And this is Juliana here. Yes, final On the Road. Hopefully we'll be in the room very, very soon.
Very soon, and switching to a sort of autumnal, we allowed ourselves our own Indian summer on the podcast a little bit here, which is probably just as well because you've had a crazy week. I'll give you the chance to what's making you strange this week, Juliana, but clearly you're okay and survived Florence. How are you?
I did, and it's a crazy thing because I don't want to celebrate too much, like having survived a hurricane or dodged a bullet there.
Yeah.
I feel bad.
Oh no.
For people who did not fare as well.
So much of North Carolina's underwater right now. Like, my heart goes out to you guys. And I know it's been especially dicey because you're in rehearsal for a show right now as well. How's that tapped in?
Yeah, August Osage County. We open this Thursday, this week.
Oy. You said there was no power at the theater? And
people are also like coming in soggy, and we've missed a few people who live a little farther out who were not able to. So I just have to jump on like one highway to get there. I'm fairly close to the theater, but some people,
have a distance.
Physically couldn't make it because of the roads flooding.
Oh man.
So it is a good show, though. It's a good show.
Please come see the show if you're in the area.
Our show, and such a kind of scary week. The cast is delightfully lighthearted, and awesome. We're doing well as a cast.
Nice. Yeah, we've all been thinking about you up here in the Dirty Jers, where we had a lovely sunny weekend, and I just felt like we're making up for it now. I have remnants of your hurricane outside my window right now.
It's coming. Just sit tight.
We have bits. Yeah, well, it suddenly decides to downpour for 10 minutes at a kick, and then it'll stop, and the sun will come back out. It's amazing. It's truly, something.
I'm really enjoying the sun today, though, if you can't tell.
Well, and I was also going to say I really like your little owl and your piano set up behind you, like that.
Oh, Kay always recently has been recording from her office, so I thought I would just record from my office today. So yes,
I love it. I think it's a nice look. It's a good look. Go with it. So, although it's great to have a piano behind you, it sort of ties into our theme this week. We are talking because we spent a full episode talking about contemporary plays earlier this summer, and I think it's only fair to turn the table right round now, and we're going to spend today talking about our favorite musicals. It's been a little while since we were strictly in a musical theater place, Juliana. I mean, outside of the shows we currently have been doing. So this should be great. We each picked, it's kind of the Facebook challenge, and I had our mutual friend Laura Icometa tagged me many weeks ago now to do this challenge, and I was like, okay, actually that's a good idea for an episode. So in a way this is sort of the Facebook challenge, but we're doing it for an episode. So 10 musicals. If you are even musical theater adjacent, you've probably seen friends posting pictures of things, and if you're too adjacent, you're like, what are those things? But we're going to talk musicals today, and I'm excited about that. So coming out of the first break, we are going to sit here and talk about our top 10 musicals each, and we're going to split this kind of a 5 and 5 with a break in between, so y'all can go potty or whatever needs to happen. But I think first I want to say, before I jump into any of these, Juliana, they're not in any particular order really for me.
I feel like in some ways for me personally, the list is a little bit arbitrary because these would be like the first 10 that come to mind.
Yeah.
That I think about.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily what I think of as like musicals I really respect or like can't wait to do or really want to direct. They're just the ones that came to mind as like, I love that. That's enjoyable. I could watch it right now.
Which I think is kind of the spirit of the Facebook challenge, if you will. Because I think some people have organized it by like, they went through and did things like, 10-1 and like, I can't do that. Like, if there's any theme in mind, there's a little bit of chronology to it, but it falls apart very fast chronologically. So yeah, no. So I say this challenge to you, Juliana. What's your first one? What musical?
Okay. Well, a kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. And having been raised on AMC, American Classic cable channels, and TNT, I really, really grew up on the Hollywood musical. And imagine my excitement when I learned that Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is actually a stage musical. It's very exciting. But a little fun fact, it was actually a novel first, 1925. It was a novel, and then it became a film, and then it became a stage musical.
Aww.
And then they made it a film again.
It's like people like to criticize shows nowadays for being so quick to film adapt, but I'm like, no, go back to classic Hollywood, take a look. They were jumping on a lot of these adaptations pretty quickly. So yeah, there's nothing new about that, and the popping back and forth. People bring up things like Hairspray going back and forth so many times they don't even know where it originated anymore.
Yeah. So this one is book, film, stage, film, and the final film iteration that we know is the Marilyn Monroe, Jane Russell.
I was gonna say, yeah, they went out on Dear Marilyn, so yeah. And I am in the classic. My first is in the classic realm as well, because anybody who I talk to for even 30 seconds, I name check this very close to my heart musical from 1947. If diamonds are a girl's best friend, Juliana, then this is so far from that, but can't we two go walking together out beyond the Valley of Green, out where there's a hillside of heather, curtsying gently? Brigadoon. Oh, and it's Lerner and Lowe.
Play through some of these.
I adore. Yeah, exactly. We should have. It looks like we need to be cueing you every 2 seconds. But no, straight up Brigadoon is a sentimental favorite for me. It was one of the first musicals I saw as a kid, and I saw it live in an outdoor theater space where yeah, so the town came down through the aisles for the wedding. It was just immersive for me. I also grew up in Scotia, New York, which is very, very Scottish. So yeah, and yet I've never done the show. Let me be clear about that. This is one I want to do at some point in my life. My theater mentor, Debbie May, had always said to me it was going to be the last musical she ever did at Scotia High School, and in fact she did. She went out on Brigadoon. The kids thought it was a bit oldie and throwbacky, but if I didn't sit there in that auditorium 10 years out from graduation watching this thing and sobbing, it will always be special to me. The film adaptation, famously with Gene Kelly, it has its pluses, it has its minuses. I think it was actually in watching the film adaptation where I did understand for the first time. I'm like, yeah, the book is a little bulky here and there, but for the live experience, especially the way that I first saw it, there was no beating it. So Brigadoon is my classic Golden Age musical. Where'd you go next?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to stay in the genre of film musicals that are actually adapted for stage as well, with White Christmas. This is in Berlin. Book is by David Ives and Paul Blake.
Nice.
And just as far as being able to not be just a straight up cheesy holiday warm fuzzy feeling.
Right.
So I feel like it earns its warm fuzzy feelings. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of theater, musical theater from that era can do. And also, yeah, I guess it's also maybe a sentimental thing.
Yeah, oh no, totally. And that actually, I think, again, that's sort of baked into this challenge, because they're musicals that mean something to you, and it's well, if that's the case. But no, White Christmas, actually, of the holiday films that I can think of, that one, that snuck in later in my life. That wasn't, obviously the song was on the radio from when I was in utero, but, I didn't see the film proper until a little bit later in my life. But you can't beat it for sentimental and totally.
Well, let me tell you this. This is kind of a fun thing. That the book, so Irving Berlin music, but the book is written by David Ives and Paul Blake. David Ives wrote my favorite role, Wanda in Venus in Fur. And so much, much later.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's an interesting little
Oh no, I love that. I love those kind of little connection things. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple later on my list that have connecting pieces too. For my second, there's you know, talking, I guess, film adaptations of musicals is a good door in here, because my second on the list is 1776. And obviously it would have been the film that I saw. I didn't see a live on stage version of it actually until I was well into high school. And then again in college. But 1969, Sherman Edwards, Peter Stone, we've lived in this place for a year now, Juliana, but it's still, like, it was on somewhere recently, and I just found myself pulled in for a minute, because really the performances, and actually that film adaptation is sort of unique for the fact that it's most of the original cast. Like, a lot of times when they transfer it from the stage, you know, they bring in a big name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the fact that they had like 90% of that original Broadway cast is a bit of a coup.
Yes.
And so I just remember, I've said this on the show 19 times, my dad loves history. My dad loves musicals. Like, it was required. I think shortly after going to see Brigadoon live, probably got sat down in the living room and we watched the VHS of 1776. Like, it's just, when I think about my earliest musical influences, those are right there. Those are right there.
Yeah. I wish I could share my screen with you right now, because my number 3 choice is also 1776.
It's all good.
So, yes, obviously. I don't want to, like...
We don't have to belabor it, but no.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason we've lived with it for a year, you know, because we love the show. I mean, yeah.
Right. And for me, it is the show that made me want to do musical theater.
Mm-hmm.
I was a history buff already when I saw the show. A budding history buff, and but I was also a musician, came from a musical family, so that when I saw history and music put together, my mind was blown, and the storyteller part of me just, you know, got so excited with the possibilities.
Right. Yeah, and I think it really did lay a lot of groundwork for later things, which may or may not be on my list here, but making history accessible through a musical theater lens.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that on the show too. But anyway, yeah, so amazing. I can't imagine how we intersected on that one. Gee.
Like, timing wise.
Got it, you know? And there's literally no way I can make a logic leap to this next one. I could invert my order right now, but if we're going purely by as they came to the brain, as we've been saying for a while, my next on the list, I'm just going to go there. When it came to getting into modern musicals, it's Cats. It's 1981. It is T.S. Eliot set to Andrew Lloyd Webber. It is a dance concert. There's something about it. When I discovered it in the late-ish 90s as a kid, it just really pulled me in. And it might just be speaking to the quality of the music, to the fun wordplay of T.S. Eliot, to the fact that I didn't have a pet cat, so okay, maybe. But it was Cats, of those mega 80s musicals, stands out for me. I am using a bit of an apologetic voice, but whenever somebody is legitimately asking me what was formative for me, I have to bring up Cats. I have to. It's fun. I can still name every character in it. When you just be like, oh, the white cat, I'm like, you mean Victoria? Or what about those twins? You mean Coraco, Pat, and Tantamil? Like, I was a real nerd. So, for that show at that point, yes. And it just speaks to how very strongly I ingrained it in my brain that that's all still there, helpful or not. That's all still there. So K's number 3 is Cats. Hi.
I love it. You know, actually, I can very easily make the leap between 1776 and my next show. So we have the Sherman Brothers writing. When did they write the stage version of 1776? I know you know this.
They initially wrote it in, I think it was about 68, but it didn't make to Broadway till 69. So there was a process, yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, so 69. And then in 1976, the Sherman Brothers wrote a musical for film called The Slipper and the Rose. I sent you a clip from this, actually, while we were preparing.
Yes, you did! And it got stuck in my brain, and half of our cast misread the title of the song.
You know, okay, we need to make a physical list of all the movies we need to watch together. And shows to watch together, because I would love to watch this in the room with you. So 1976, the film comes out of The Slipper and the Rose, which is a Cinderella story. And then in 1984, they adapt it for stage.
Nice. Okay, another way round, yep.
Later, they adapt it for stage. But it is delightful and wonderful, and the Sherman Brothers all over it. And it's lovely, wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And I would love to sit in the room and watch it with you because, yes, that one clip that you posted to our little cast Facebook group was stuck in my head for the rest of that day. You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, and as far as like my family with my siblings go, we quote that movie the same way some families quote The Princess Bride.
That's amazing.
Other movies, we quote that movie all the time.
Yeah.
And they're so obscure. If you haven't seen the movie, you know, it's.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, no, my version of that would have been Dad and I quoting 1776 while Mom rolled her eyes. But anyway, for my next one, and again, like I said, if I was trying to be, you know, slick here and try to roll it all together, I should have mentioned this before Cats, but whatever. My next choice on the list in my evolution of theater, the first show I ever saw in New York was Ragtime, 1998. It's in the history slot again. But I actually came into Ragtime having seen all of the promo. Quick shout out, Rosie O'Donnell's show in the late 90s was amazing for Broadway. It was amazing for getting shows to us kids. I wasn't even in middle America. I'm in the state of New York, but I'm upstate. So my parents are going, I don't know, it's expensive to go to New York. But seeing these shows and kind of helped me get my parents on board. Like, I remember planning to go see Ragtime, going to the then Ford Center. Now it, whatever that theater's called these days, it keeps getting rebranded. But Ragtime. And then I read the book. Like, it got me. Seeing the musical got me to go back and read E.L. Doctorow. And brain blown. Like, that, I think that's another great thing that musical theater can do for people is unlock the source material and get people who might not have otherwise been inclined to go, wait, what's this about? And I know I didn't see the entire original cast, but I guarantee you I saw Marin Mazzie, which, sidebar, breaking my damn heart. She lost her battle with ovarian cancer this week.
It took my breath away when I saw that article. I realized that she was battling, but I did not realize how close we were to losing her, and it's just devastating.
The last announcement that was made was that she had beaten it, or at least she was in remission, and I actually saw the article that she had passed while sitting in my Into the Woods rehearsal this week. And our dear Dr. Michael was like, well, you know, they announce when remission happens, but you don't necessarily be like, oops, it's back. Right. I also know her husband, Jason Daniele, is currently in Pretty Woman on Broadway, and he posted on social media, you know, I'm horribly paraphrasing here, but endless thank yous for, you know, the outpouring of love, and he can't even begin to sort through it all right now. But I do know they're going to be dimming the lights on Broadway. I believe it's the 21st, so later this week in her honor. But that was my, you know, I saw the announcement. I immediately went to her rendition of Back to Before from Ragtime and had all the feels and all the chills. And I did see her in Ragtime. I very clear memory of that now, even though it was like second balcony in the Ford Center, way, way away with my little goggles. But like, bless you, Marin Mazzie, you were another one of my doors into musical theater, as was Ragtime itself, but there's that. So what's your number 4? There's no way to come back from that without, I'm getting emotional again.
Well, so we know I have an era.
Yes, exactly.
I have eras.
Yep.
One of my eras, around the time actually that I was discovering 1775, as I was 1776.
That's okay. We were all a year ahead. You were more interested in the build-up. That's another show.
Prequel. It'll come out 20 years later.
Yes.
So around that time, also in my own personal obsessions with periods in American history, I was really into the early 20th century, what's happening in vaudeville. And so what I had known, I was researching Al Jolson. I had known who Fanny Brice was. And then all of a sudden I discovered that there's a musical called Funny Girl, also playing on
yes, totally.
I really hadn't known Barbra Streisand as an actor or performer at all at the time, so I'm still kind of like a young teen.
That's a way to discover her, though, man.
Yeah. I had known a hell of a lot about Fanny Brice, and then to be able to see this biopic,
yeah, exactly,
in musical form was so exciting, and it is a really great show. And Barbra Streisand is
Barbra Streisand.
I can't say anything bad about her.
Right. Exactly.
marvelous in this role. This is a perfect role for her, and it's so exciting to hear like her story about it all. So, Funny Girl, absolutely. Even though it's in the middle of our list, it's on the top of my list. It's like something I would sit down and watch right now.
It's all good. Yeah, again, there's no real rhyme or reason here, and we're bopping around a lot. But in talking about I guess what happened here is I just kept kind of progressing forward in as I was bumping into musicals as a kid, because my first big obsession was Cats. Yes, thank you. My next big obsession didn't really come along. There were shows I loved, but like became totally addicted to was 2003 Wicked. I am bringing a show that's currently still running on Broadway into the room right now, but it ties back because I think one of the first movie musicals I ever saw was The Wizard of Oz as well. I'd never seen it on stage. And I think that's kind of what works so well for Wicked in a way, and why even the Source Gregory Maguire book works so well, because it kind of takes The Wizard of Oz and does this with it. And there's just something very smart about that, and it's also very smart about taking it in the direction of, even before we had very feminist forward shows like Waitress and such, Wicked really celebrates a true female friendship, warts and all, kind of with all of this fantastic stuff and placing it in a world. I think it also appeals to the Harry Potter crowd a bit. We could talk all day long about why Wicked has had legs and has run for 13 years now. But
I feel like so many musical theater people would talk about how influential and important Wicked is for them across the board.
Any number of ways. And I actually also, to be honest, Wicked was my first experience with the Broadway lottery. It's one of my stories. I got into that lotto. This is way early. Also, this is me being my first Broadway hipster. The show had been open about 2 weeks, and I won the lotto. So I got to see it from the front row with the entire listed cast. Joel Grey is 3 feet away from me. Kristen Chenoweth's bubble flies right over my head. Idina Menzel comes up through the floor. It was the spectacle, the connection to my childhood, all of the above. And I was lucky enough to I was a college kid who didn't quite have the handle on. I had disposable income, so I was like, let me buy rush tickets. I became a junkie for that. So throughout that first year's run leading up to the Tonys, I think I saw it every 3 or 4 months, maybe. So it was just it really struck a chord for me in an obsessive way. So what's your fifth?
It's funny, in doing these lists, you do find out a lot about yourself, and I feel like I realize why I'm so into dramaturgy when I look at musicals that are important to me, because the next one is also not only a historical based musical, but it's also based on a book, or a play, 1951 play I Am a Camera, which was adapted from a 1939 book.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's set in 1931. Berlin becomes the musical in 1966. Cabaret transfers to Broadway. But this is Kander and Ebb, Cabaret, and just, again, it's super important for so many reasons. And
it's got the Joel Grey connection, too. So I went to later Joel Grey career. You just went all the way back to how a lot of us first encounter him. I actually was recently looking at, God bless the YouTube, old Tony Awards segments, and we can finally see what shows did. There's a whole side jaunt here too about how shows choose to present themselves on the Tony Awards that we can go on later, not in this episode. But seeing Joel Grey,
my tongue right now.
Seeing Joel Grey at the peak of Joel Greyness in Cabaret. So I 1,000% on board with you there. Okay. I don't know what space has to do with social media. Oh, it's because it's vast. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So by now, if you're not a Strange Deer, please remember to subscribe below to become a part of our community. We release a new episode every week. Sometimes we do bonus episodes. We do live shows on the Facebook. But you can also find us on social media everywhere at Strange Deer. Instagram, we have a Facebook page, maybe a Facebook group coming soon for all the super fans. And if you want to reach out to us directly, you can find us at strangebutTrueDear@gmail.com.
I have no idea. Last talk. Coming out of the break. Woohoo. So what's next? We're going now through 6 through 10 on our musicals. So where'd you go with your 6th?
Well, I stayed in the world of Candor and Ebb for Chicago.
Nice.
This is also based on a 1926 play of the same name. So this is like a decade after Cabaret comes Chicago, and there's so many things I love about it, but just from like a director-producer point of view, it's so marvelously put together and streamlined and edited. It's just really pretty perfect.
Yeah.
When it comes to a stage piece, and I think casting options are really interesting. I really love it. I think it's a great piece that's not going to go anywhere soon.
Yeah, Chicago has this is the mind-blowing bit. The revival has been running since 1997, man. Like, right. Oh gosh. And you know, some people go, well, stunt casting extended its life. No, I really do think it has something to do with the piece, to be honest. I mean, also you could have the conversation about the overhead being low or whatever, because it is basically a black box type presentation, but yeah, it still wouldn't pull people in if it didn't have, you know, all of the above that makes for a tight show. So yeah. I am completely. What do you think of the film adaptation, by the way? The more recent film adaptation. We should be clear. This is another show that's done the ping pong between stage and screen.
I don't hate it. Okay. There are performances I really, really love. There are some I don't.
But okay, of the two film adaptations, would you bounce back to the earlier one every time, or how are your feelings on that?
Okay, director-wise, I'm really inspired by the more recent adaptation, just as far as devices that are used. I think transfer to stage, and I think what they did is a really good job of is being like, I can see this on stage this way.
Right.
Does that make sense? Do I sound like an idiot?
No, not at all. I follow what you're saying. Yeah. It was there. The more recent one was, and it was directed by a stage director, for instance.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm seeing that.
Yeah, Rob Marshall.
Yeah. So I'm not so distracted by the Hollywood performers.
Yeah. No, and I think actually it's worth calling Rob Marshall in the room for a minute, because he's one of those directors who's been able to work quite successfully in both mediums. And that is a rare creature. So let's see. My number 6. Okay. It's a town, like Chicago is a town, but it's a bit of a mythic town. It's a bad place, really, and it's a title that shouldn't.
I know what this place is.
You are humble audience. I'm taking us to 2001 and Urinetown. It is Mark Holman and Greg Cottis, and it's a show I've done twice. So this is one where I came to love the piece because I was cast in it, because I also, and I've mentioned this in the past, I had done the Three Penny Opera just ahead of the first time I did Urinetown. So I really picked up on the world. I knew kind of the medium we were talking in, and the direct kind of moments of sending up that dystopian thing. Add on a, bizarre premise about having to pay to pee in public facilities and stuff, although given water shortages, and we could get political here in a hurry, there are moments where I feel like Urinetown might not be that far off. But I found myself revisiting kind of my sentimental love for Urinetown recently again. Our new roommate Mark was in the first production I did in 2007. And he directed his own version of it within the past couple years, and he was showing me how he did it. And I think there's a reason it lives so well regionally now, despite the title. It's funny. If you can get people past, but the title's awful, like there's so much to be found there that sends up traditional musical theater, that makes it fun, funny, accessible. It's a golden... Poor choice of words. It's a golden piece for me. So Urinetown is my number 6. What's your number 7?
Okay. Definitely,
Look what I did.
definitely have a theme here as far as musicals that were perhaps introduced to us on the silver screen first or small screen first,
Right.
And then stage, because there's Newsies,
Yes.
which we talked about before. Um,
Oh man.
Christian Bale was my first celebrity crush.
Oh.
I was smitten. You know, he was the first like crush that I like cried over.
Oh man. Oh man.
So much.
It's so funny because I saw Newsies the first time and I went, it's David Moscow. It's the kid from Big. Like, so that's kind of, there's a psychology moment there. You were looking at Jack. I was like, Davey. Oh my God. Newsies. Yeah. Newsies I discovered when I was in junior high school and crushing, and I endlessly got that VHS out of Blockbuster. I did.
Or like, did you ever like do VCR, like record TV? So like we recorded from the Disney Channel Newsies, and yes, I wore it out. I made my own cassette recording.
Oh geez.
You know, just by like putting the recorder up to the TV.
Power to the realistic tape deck thing and the little microphone.
I wish I still had it because I'm singing along with Santa Fe.
Oh, I'm sure.
In that cassette.
I'm sure. And I actually would hold up Newsies when we're talking about the adaptation to stage as a pretty good example of expanding a score in a way that you're not sitting there going, okay, when's the next one I know from the movie?
When I saw it on Broadway, it was very close to the time that they closed. I was disappointed, and it could be because all of my coming of age happened when I'm watching the movie, so it could be, you know, just nothing to look up to that.
But there's a true thing and a true danger in adaptation too when you pick something that really is super close to a segment. I would say this much: the way they reimagined elements of it, I was good with Harvey Fierstein's retooling of the book. Because it's closer to history in a way. It's closer to how things actually went.
Yeah.
And
it lost the campiness.
Okay.
Intentional.
I follow that. We're gonna have a Newsies debate here. This should be a whole other side episode at some point in time. Yeah.
But for me, the campiness sold me.
Yeah, no, and there's definitely something to be said for that. I saw it at Paper Mill before it made the transfer to Broadway. One of my other fellow Newsies obsessed friends, Jen Mack. There are so many Jens in my life. Not the other Jen that I've mentioned before, who was on Kimmy Schmidt. I have just Jens. Other Jen and I went to see it. I think it had only been open like a week or so at Paper Mill, and so I got to see when I got to see it in New York. Later, it was a fun exercise in changing up the score, which is maybe what I do appreciate, because there were two numbers that immediately come to mind that didn't work at Paper Mill, I felt, and they changed, they adjusted, so in that way, I think Newsies for both of us would be one of those shows that it's kind of an exercise and a fascinating study in adaptation.
Yeah.
We need to revisit this. There's so much here. There's more than a cursory episode here. Clearly, we both have strong feels. So speaking of adaptation, I can make this light and fun. My number 7, it actually never made it to Broadway. This is my little sort of shout-out love to Off-Broadway.
I'm going there next, too.
Awesome. Look at us. But it would have been 2006. And it grabbed me initially because it sounded so absurd. Because the title is Evil Dead the Musical. I am a tremendous fan of this little quirky piece that sounds like an SNL sketch. But, like, the score is very Rocky Horror Picture Show in its inspiration. And speaking to the campiness of a piece, that is what sold me on this. You know, it hits all the places it needs to, considering it's taking a trilogy of movies and condensing them down into one 2-act piece. I actually didn't see it off Broadway. I saw it in Toronto, which turns out to be more correct because this little God bless it, George Reinblatt, I'm giving you a shout out on your score and your lyrics. It started in Canada. So it is 100% Canadian. There is a demon moose who bites Ash's hand. There's a moment where Ash is fighting his hand in a great study in mime. It's cheesy, it's corny. I made sure I sat in the first 3 seats of the theater because that's what's called that's the splash zone, if you will, like if you're going to a Gallagher concert, but it's like all stage blood, and I wore a white t-shirt, like it was fun. I can't apologize, Evil Dead, I want to do this show sometime, I would play any role they ask me. It's just campy, it's corny, I love it to bits. What's your number 8?
Okay, it's so I've been waiting to talk to you about this show because this is a show I sincerely am going to direct as soon as a theater hires me to direct it, because I'm so excited about doing this piece because the licensing is out now. It's a show that ran off Broadway in 2010 called Perfect Harmony.
Okay.
It is an a cappella musical, and it is it's like High School Musical. It's like what's the girls?
The Heathers? No.
No, not the Heathers. Anyway, about a cappella music groups or glee clubs. You know,
okay.
It's World of Glee and all of that, but it's a cappella. It's a jukebox musical, kind of,
okay.
In the way that they're using a cappella arrangements of these classic like Motown and other more recent pieces. It's the a cappellas versus the Red Ladies or the Ladies in Red. It's just delightful, and it's not the kind of show that's appropriate for Broadway, but it's so perfect for off-Broadway or black box theater, smaller theaters. I really hope that it does well now that the licensing is available.
And we should totally stump here at this moment for off-Broadway pieces, because I feel like sometimes tourists come to New York and they're like, I want to see the Broadway, but let's be clear, sometimes you can really find even the better stuff off Broadway. Like I've had a bunch of fantastic experiences either catching things before they didn't make the inevitable jump, or just even if it just lived off Broadway and that was it, and it was fantastic. Like
Well, I think for people who are coming to New York who are not artsy folk, they don't care about, it's not important to them acting and singing and all of that. But the spectacle is something that one can feel and absorb.
Yeah.
Walk of life. And so I think, part of that job of a big Broadway show is to provide the spectacle.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. But I would say if you want to have a fantastic theater experience in New York and you can't afford Broadway ticket prices too, don't think you're like doing a cut rate experience going off Broadway. That would be my sales pitch to you.
Exactly. Because the level of professionalism and the talent is all the same people. It's just scaled down. That's it. It's just a smaller scale.
And there's something to be said for that nice intimate theater experience that you get off Broadway too. Seriously. It's fun that you called the jukebox musical into the room, because my number 8, it falls back into Kay's obsession category. After Wicked, my next big one was the Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons mega musical of 2005, Jersey Boys. It was another one I saw early in the run. It's also a fantastic book by Marshall Brickman.
I was just about to say that. I was about to say the book is great for a jukebox musical.
Marshall Brickman and Rick Ellis really, in a way, unlock what can work with a jukebox musical. Not falling back on the songs and the nostalgia to carry you entirely, because that gets old in a hurry. With Jersey Boys, they managed to structure a book. Yeah, okay, a little bit like a Sopranos episode, whatever, but it works and it's compelling and it keeps moving. And every single one of the 4 core guys in the group gets a moment. And, it's running off Broadway now. Like Jersey Boys was closed for a little bit, and then now it's off Broadway again. And yeah, honestly, there's a whole other side comment there about how sometimes shows can downsize. Avenue Q made that step back too. Yep. But anyway, to the core of Jersey Boys, it's the book. It's great music, but it's great music that's married with a great book. And also, it's sentimental for me. My husband proposed to me outside Jersey Boys after we'd seen it in 2005. Actually, that was early 2006. But it was one of those shows that I went, yes, they finally got this genre figured out, because there'd been so much stop and start in it. And I had done a couple of jukebox musicals too, where I'd been like, oh, okay, well, we're here for the songs, and I guess there are some lines between the songs. Not to say Buddy Holly wasn't entertaining, not to say that Leader of the Pack wasn't fun, but it didn't have the kind of book that I almost feel could stand on its own without the songs.
Yeah.
Like Jersey Boys did, honestly.
Yeah.
So no doubt in my mind that Jersey Boys was my next. What's your number 9?
Okay, 1993.
Okay.
Again, we're first introduced to this work on the silver screen, although it did begin as a poem. This is The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nice. Nicey nice.
And this is one of those things, like, it has such a great cult following. I don't need to explain why it's so great, but I think it definitely belongs on my list of favorite, great, influential musicals. But I think it's important in so many worlds, in so many different genres. It's a great, great piece.
Oh man, and you don't have to argue the merits of that thing to me. I didn't necessarily get into it when it first came out. Because also my parents were rather insanely protective, and they thought it was scary for me. It wasn't.
Well,
I know, but
you're supposed to be a little uneasy, I think.
Exactly. No, but it was like, I don't know. We can dissect my parents' weird choices about what content I got to see as a child some other day. But my roommate, my junior year of college, Brittany Pone, she adores Nightmare. Like, walking into our dorm room, or the first time I ever even met her, like, I think she was wearing Jack Skellington on her shirt. Like, it's just, I get it. As an adult, in a way, it's kind of fun that I did miss out as a kid, because I could kind of look at it with an adult eye and be like, no, this is just really well done.
Yeah. You know who also loves it is Kevin, our Kevin.
Our Kevin! Hi, our Kevin! Jack. There are giants in the sky. Anyway, now I'm realizing my last 2 on my list. There's something unique here, because up until now I have not picked shows that competed against each other in the same season. So my number 9 and my number 10 were the same year. And I'm going to go with my number 9 here and say, first of all, God bless Adrienne Shelly for putting a movie out there into the world that was so interesting, that drew eyes, and made Jessie Nelson and Sarah Bareilles give us in 2015 Waitress. I also, Mark, my lovely roommate Mark, is a huge Waitress nerd. We may or may not have just listened through the entire score the other day, singing our hearts out. I think the angle I want to go with Waitress here is from the place of Sarah Bareilles was one of those musical theater nerds. Like, she was in drama club in high school, and she, like, even though her career path took her down a pop route to start things off, you listen to the score, and it's not just a pop musician being asked to write music to attach her name to a piece. Yeah. It's smart. It has so many influences in that score from someone who just knows the genre. And there's, against, in the same season that has a major blockbuster musical there that took all the attention, Waitress was the show that managed to survive, however, because when you couldn't get your foot in the door, I'm omitting this title because it may or may not be my number 10, when you couldn't get your foot in the door to the sold out show, you weren't having really a quality decrease by going to Waitress. Just a very different experience. And I think they've been very smart with the way they're casting. I'm so happy they have their first person of color playing Jenna now. Like, these things are this show is so smart on so many levels. So bless you, Sarah Bareilles. Bless you, Jessie Nelson. Adrienne Shelly, I wish you'd lived to see this thing adapted. I wish you had lived to see your movie become something so great. I know it's going to live for a long time. And this is my way of saying, what's your number 9?
No, you've heard them all.
10.
I did 5 and 6 back to back.
Yeah. And what's your last?
That's it.
Oh.
I'm done.
Oh, well, okay, then I guess it's time to bring my 10th into the room was Hamilton.
Yes.
Yeah, well, honestly, and when I look at the notes for Hamilton, I'm like, just well done, well flipping done. Because I think everything we could say about Hamilton we said in a way when we were talking 1776.
I was just say, what a nice way to button up season 1, because our very first episode we talked about Hamilton.
Truth, absolutely. I just, Hamilton, there are people who really now can't stand it because they're just like, oh God, hype, and they won't even look at it. But I'm like, dude, give it a chance. I would not, everything that we said in that first episode, I'm not naturally inclined to listen to a hip hop based score. That would have actually been,
Not. I mean,
a turn off to me at some stage in my life, but it's not about that. It is so smartly done in so many ways. I think it's kind of got the same appeal to me that something like an Evil Dead did initially, because the brand on the label, like trying to get you to open up the box and see what's in it, would make you go, really? Alexander Hamilton's life story as told through rap. Like, what is this? Like, but it's just so smart, and I think in a lot of ways then I would have to say the 2015 theater season made me very, very, very happy as a theater goer.
Yeah. Here, here.
Strange this week. Yay, Strange this week. I'll let you go first on Strange this week. So, I feel like it's a gross understatement to say there are many things that made this week strange across the country. But so what specifically is making you strange this week, Juliana?
Okay. Daniel Ingram.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if you know who he is. He's a composer, and he has written a lot of pieces for children's shows. He's so stinking talented. I really like his stuff. It's commercially perfect.
Nice.
It's also really fun to listen to. So I have been listening to, on repeat, because that's what you do when you have small children, the My Little Pony the movie soundtrack, which is so good. It is so good, and I have to say, I watched the movie this weekend after having listened to the soundtrack probably 30, 40 times. And I think the soundtrack is maybe a notch even better than the movie. It's delightful.
This wouldn't have anything to do with you being stuck inside with children while a hurricane was raging outside, would it?
Stuck inside with children who are not in school because, yes, there's a hurricane coming our way.
There's a hurricane a-blowing.
But anyway, the soundtrack is really great. It's got some great musical numbers that the ponies and other characters sing in the show, which are delightful. But there's also an original song. In the soundtrack, there's an original song by Sia. There is a Danish band called Lucas Graham who contribute a number called Off to See the World, which I'm actually adding to my book.
Nice.
As a piece that I got a once audition number where I can play the piano and sing with it. DNCE and CL have songs too on the soundtrack. The whole soundtrack is just so delightful and easy to listen to, and I don't hate listening to it. Yeah. So here's kind of like the takeaway for me on this one. If you are a professional performer and you have kids who are consuming a lot of media and songs and children's music, sometimes it can drive you crazy because kids listen to things on repeat. But there is a lot of really high quality stuff out there in kids music, and a lot of it is commercially very popular. But just as a composer, as a performer, this stuff is really strong. And so I wanted to give two small shout outs to old school, the Backyardigans. Really great music there. They have several albums. And it's collaborative with the composers there. And then, if you can't get enough of your Disney movies and your Disney princesses, check out the soundtrack for Sophia the First, which is an animated series. The soundtrack is really good.
Thank you for calling Sophia into the room. I thought the music is so smart on that show for so long.
Right? And they have a lot of great performers and musical theater professionals. These are people who know what they're doing, and they're interpreting this music that's already beautifully written, and post-production is perfection. It's
and voiceover legends in there too. Like from the very beginning of Sophia, there's a fantastic voiceover artist who's been working in the industry for decades, Jess Harnell, who voices Cedric, the magician, and his I Want Villain song is perfection.
Yes.
Yeah, perfection. And I think there's also a bit of a thing in here where we could talk about how the quality of the composers who are working in quote unquote children's television, or you know what, don't don't just think it's all rinky-dink, like thrown together on a synthesizer. No, this stuff is so well done. Also,
I feel like a lot of the stuff we listen to is rinky-dink thrown together on a synthesizer, put together in a rented music studio for 4 hours. But
yeah. No, it is, and also I'm putting in a side shout out here to my friend Alicia Angel, who has been working. She's a composer, and she's also one of my coworkers at one of my day jobs. But she spent a while writing for Dora the Explorer, music for Dora. She's done music for Sesame Street. Like she's just sitting and talking with Lily, as I call her, for even 2 minutes. Her passion for composing for kids and a smart kind of music. Her and Jay, her collaborator, they're just incredible. Hey, Lily, I've seen you pop in on the lives before, so now that I'm giving you a direct shout out here, you need to watch this episode. But no, dead on with that. Like, there is truly some fantastic work happening in the quote-unquote kids genre, so don't let that stop you from checking it out. You're going to run into some things that are a little bit, but there's a lot. There's good stuff in there. There's definitely good stuff in there. So interestingly, what's making me strange this week, well, now I'm thinking there are a couple different ones in here, which I can kind of boil down into. Kay has a bunch of shout outs going on. First, have you seen the trailer for Mary Poppins Returns? This is Disney adjacent, and this
I've not seen the trailer.
Oh my god, it dropped yesterday, and we talked about adaptation. You know what this ties in? Adaptation fear, because how much more daunting can it be to do a sequel 50 years later to Mary Poppins?
In the book series, isn't that?
Oh no, absolutely. But as far as like what pop culture thinks of, exactly, they don't know there was another book. They just think, oh, we're cashing in on everything Disney ever did. No, it looks gorgeous, and it choked me up in all the right ways. Yes, leaning on my nostalgia buttons. Disney's been good at that lately, but it looks like it's going to be phenomenal. So just a quick shout out on that, because that ties in a way to what you were talking about. It's Disney adjacent. It's the same world. But my other shout out I want to do is connected to your world with North Carolina, because the National Women's Soccer League is going forward with our finals this weekend. They did finally move the game that was going to be held in Cary, North Carolina, in the middle of a damn hurricane. It was supposed to be on Sunday. There's no way, man. There's no way. They moved it to Portland, Oregon. Those who've heard me speak on this program before about the that's where the final is going to be, and it made a lot of sense because they've already got the infrastructure there, and whoever wins the semifinal tonight can just stay in Portland, which P.S. Spending a few days extra in Portland, like, sign me up, because I love the Pacific Northwest. They're just such a fun, bohemian, soccer-loving town. But those who've listened to the show before know women's athletics in particular matter to me. And the National Women's Soccer League, while not getting the coverage of the NFL getting started for the season or whatever it is, our final is this coming weekend, and the quality of the teams roll after fantastic. I am always pro women, making a statement in what's considered or typically thought of as a men-dominated field. So I'm currently rooting for the Portland Thorns to repeat as champions, but we'll see what the North Carolina Courage does tonight. So that was fun. You're right on the nose. We kind of went back to where it all started by closing things up with Hamilton there. Wasn't my intention, but given the musical is the love, and we're going to start soldiering forth into season 2, and our fall series is going to start picking up next week, and we look forward to seeing you guys then. Anything else you want to say, Juliana?
I just want to remind everyone to stay strange, dears.
It's a great throwback. The stare. The creepy stare. All right.